Hey folks, it's Nate. Thanks for joining me at the art table again today. I have something a little bit different for you today. Most of you know that I'm a writer by trade and a storyteller by inclination. But today, I don't want to talk about the craft of storytelling. I want to pitch a story. Partly to you, my audience, but mostly to Az of Heel vs. Babyface, who recently coined the idea of a supervillain turned superhero known as the Peeping Tom. I was charmed by the idea, and I'm a writer for hire, so I thought, why don't I pitch a story to Az? Pitches are what make entertainment go round, after all, and I recognize that there's probably nothing original whatsoever in these ideas. There's really nothing original in storytelling at all. But this is more of a proof of concept to show that I do think about storytelling and I can make this work. I've also done several complete scripts which I can produce if he's interested in seeing them. Contact me on Twitter as. But there also needs to be some sign that I've thought about the character and the ideas themselves, and I have something that works for that character. So here it is. A few beats of a as of yet untitled Peeping Tom origin story. We open on Tom watching women change backstage at a Vegas show. He's not, of course, backstage with them. He's watching them through the walls. He's also enjoying himself a nice sandwich. While he's taking in the sights, his arch-rival, the superhero Blind Justice, appears and arrests Tom for trespassing. Tom's rather indignant at that.
"Hey, BJ," he says, "this is a public space. You can't arrest me for trespassing here."
"Very funny, Thomas,"
Blind Justice replies.
"You're in the casino parking lot, and you know they banned you ever since they caught you cheating at cards."
"Come on, BJ. You know they're not going to miss a few $1,000s from the blackjack tables."
"Maybe not, but you won't like what they do to you if they catch you here. Come on, Thomas. Plenty of interesting things to see at the county lockup, too."
"Maybe so, but interesting don't mean fun, BJ."
Complain as he likes, Tom can't get away from Blind Justice, and he finds himself spending the night in jail. As advertised, there is a lot of interesting things to see, and with nothing else to do, Tom passes the time reading lips. But he unfortunately oversees something he should not. He learns that some kind of deal for contraband is going down in the warehouses next week, and the cargo and its food supply is going to require a little special handling. Unfortunately, Tom gets spotted. Being good at seeing things doesn't mean you're good at hiding, after all, and he gets the tar beaten out of him. Being good at seeing doesn't make you good at fighting necessarily either. Tom winds up spending a couple of nights in the clink longer than he expected, but since it's the supervillain lockup, there is a psychic surgeon on hand to make sure he heals up okay. What he finds out in the process, though, is that he's got glaucoma, and his vision is probably going to fail him in the next 6 months to a year. Tom is in a pretty low place when he finally gets out of jail, and after some soul-searching, he decides it's time to turn over a new leaf. So once he's out of the clink, he gets on the phone, and he puts in a phone call.
"Hello, thank you for calling Hardy Real Estate.
Bob Hardy speaking."
"Hey, BJ, this is Tom. I got an offer for you ain't going to be able to turn down."
"I'm sorry, who is this?"
"I think you know who it is, BJ. If you're interested, you just meet me at your property in Charleston Heights."
Blind Justice isn't really happy to find out that Tom knows his real identity, and that he's not blind, and he's not ready to take Tom at his word that he's actually uncovered a criminal plot. Who can blame him? So we track Tom and Blind Justice through a series of escalating misadventures as they try and foil smaller crimes that Tom has spotted in the offing. Perhaps we see him spot a bank robber with a note in his pocket saying, "I have a bomb, give me all the money in your register." And then Blind Justice has to explain to him that no, you can't just swoop in on somebody and beat them up because they have a suspicious looking note You have to wait for them to actually do something wrong. These incidents are not entirely worked out yet and are definitely a thing that would have to be discussed as the story is crafted, handpicked to showcase a number of things. The developing relationship between Tom and Blind Justice, the competence of both characters as they go about their business, beating up a few bad guys, spotting threats before they fully form, etc. And it will also let us hint at the powers in play. Not just Tom's ability to see basically anything, but also that little bit of extra oomph that makes Blind Justice so good at what he does. And that will be something that Tom is curious about because he's crossed paths with Blind Justice quite a bit, but never quite figured out how he does what he does. Of course, through all of this, we also see Tom slowly losing his vision and becoming a little bit of a liability, to the point that finally, Blind Justice agrees that he will look into this exchange that Tom heard about in the jail. However, Tom's bumbling has convinced him that maybe it's not safe to bring him along on this thing, so he tries to convince Tom to sit one out. He doesn't know that Tom is trying to remake his image because he's going blind. He thinks the guy just wants to turn over a new leaf, and you know what? Maybe he's gotten there. Tom pushes back on this a bit, and finally, Blind Justice has to tell him the truth.
You know I'm not a blind man, Tom.
Well, yeah, it's obvious. Every time I seen you in a fight, I seen your eyes moving behind your blindfold. I figured you have to be seeing something.
Well, it's not as simple as a see-through blindfold or any of those other things you thought. The fact is, I see about 3 or 4 seconds into the future. It's pretty confusing most of the time, but if I block out what I'm seeing right now, well, it's easier to focus on those couple of seconds I usually get of the future.
That's a pretty good power, BJ. Now I know why nobody in Vegas can ever get a drop on you.
Well, it's got a problem to it, Thomas.
That does not surprise me. All the best powers do.
The problem with seeing the future is, as soon as you see it, it can't come true anymore. 'Cause you're not gonna act like you did before you knew it. It's really handy when you know someone's about to punch you in the face. But it's really terrible for helping you look after other people. When you see something dangerous is about to happen to them, you can't react faster. You have to think even harder. Are you going to make the situation worse or better?
Oh yeah, I can see that. That explains why you never work with anyone, BJ.
You got it in one. So you leave this deal of yours to me. I'll break it up. If I don't have to keep an eye on you, too, it'll be a lot easier for me.
Sure thing, BJ. You do what you gotta do, and I'll do what I gotta do.
Now, a public pitch isn't really the right part to get into the discussion of the climax of a story and what the final plot twist may or may not be. However, suffice it to say that I envision Tom going along to keep an eye on Blind Justice rather than the other way around. And maybe he has his own part to play at the end of the story, where Blind Justice gets a little in over his head, and Tom has to pull his fat out of the fryer. And that gives us the origin story of Peeping Tom, the superhero, as opposed to the supervillain. A man with just a short period of time left to see all the good the world has to offer, and maybe make a little bit of it himself. Anyway, that's the pitch I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, there's a like button and subscribe button down below. You can use those as you see fit. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the pitch and what other kind of story ideas you might like to see for Peeping Tom. As if you watch this and you're interested in commissioning a full script, I can give you references and a table of rates. They're pretty reasonable, I think, but ultimately it will be up to you. Anyways, I'll talk to you later.